There comes a moment in every person's life when they face something that feels completely impossible. A moment when the mountain in front of them looks too high to climb. A moment when the problem feels too big to solve. A moment when logic says, this cannot change. Maybe that moment is where you are right now. Maybe you've been praying for something that still hasn't happened. Maybe you've been believing for a breakthrough that still hasn't come. Maybe the door you've hoped will open has stayed shut. And if you are honest, there are days when your faith feels tired. Days when you start asking yourself, is this ever going to change? But today, I want to remind you of something powerful. Just because something looks impossible for you does not mean it is impossible for God. In the Gospel of Luke chapter 1 verse 37, the Bible says, "For nothing will be impossible with God." Not some things, not a few things, nothing. The God you serve specializes in the impossible. When life feels impossible, every human being would face situations that stretch their faith. Moments where the resources are not enough. Moments where the answers are not clear. Moments where the outcome seems hopeless. Maybe the doctor said the sickness is permanent. Maybe your finances are in a place where there seems to be no way forward. Maybe your family situation looks broken beyond repair. Maybe the dream you carried for years feels like it's slowly slipping away. This moment can make you feel weak. They can make you question your strength. They can even make you question your faith. But throughout history, God has always shown His power in the moments that seemed most impossible. Because the impossible situations are often the stage where God displays His greatest miracles. The story of Abraham. Think about Abraham. In the book of Genesis, God promised Abraham something extraordinary. God told him he would become the father of many nations. But there was one problem. Abraham and his wife Sarah were already old, very old. Years passed, 10 years, 20 years, still no child. Every year that passed made the promise seem more impossible. At some point, people around them probably stopped believing. But God had not forgotten His promise. In the book of Genesis chapter 8 in the verse 14, God asked a question that still speaks to us today. Is anything too hard for the Lord? And the answer is clear. Nothing is too hard for God. At the age of 100, Abraham became the father of Isaac. What looked biologically impossible became a living miracle. When God waits, one of the hardest parts of faith is waiting. Many people can believe God for a miracle, but waiting for the miracle tests the strength of that belief. Waiting can feel like silence. Waiting can feel like delay. Waiting can feel like God is not responding. But delay does not mean denial. Sometimes God waits because the timing matters. Sometimes God waits because preparation is happening behind the scenes. Sometimes the miracle is not delayed because God is slow. Sometimes it is delayed because God is shaping you to carry what you are praying for. David and Goliath. Think about David. In the first book of Samuel, there was a giant named Goliath. This man was enormous, a trained warrior, terrifying. For 40 days, he stood in front of Israel's many army, challenging anyone to fight him. No one moved. No one believed victory was possible. Then a young shepherd named David arrived. David did not have armor. He did not have military experience. But David had something powerful: faith. He believed God could do what seemed impossible with just a sling and a stone. David defeated the giant. What everyone else thought was impossible became one of the greatest victories in the Bible. The Red Sea. There are moments in life that feels like a Red Sea moment. The Israelites experienced this in the book of Exodus. They had just escaped from Egypt. Freedom was finally within reach, but suddenly they found themselves trapped. The Red Sea in front of them, Pharaoh's army behind them. There was nowhere to go, no escape, no plan. The situation looked completely impossible, but God made a way where there was no way. The sea parted. A path appeared through the water, and the people walked through safely. What looked like the end became a miracle. Faith before the miracle. Faith is not believing after the miracle happens. Faith is believing before it happens. In the book of Hebrews chapter 11, the verse 1 says, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." Faith means trusting God when you cannot see the full picture. Faith means holding on to hope even when circumstances say otherwise. Faith means declaring that God is able even when situations look impossible. Lazarus. One of the most powerful miracles in the Bible is the story of Lazarus. It is recorded in the Gospel of John chapter 11. Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. 4 days. In that culture, after that moment of time, people believed there was no hope. But Jesus arrived, and Jesus did something extraordinary. He stood outside the tomb and said, "Lazarus, come out." And the man who had been dead walked out alive. What looked impossible was reversed by the power of God. Your impossible situation. Now think about your situation. The thing that worries you. The problem that keeps you awake at night. The prayer you've repeated again and again. It may look impossible right now, but the same God who helped Abraham, the same God who helped David, the same God who parted the Red Sea, the same God who raised Lazarus is the same God working in your life today. God has not changed. His power has not diminished. His ability has not weakened. What seems impossible to you is still possible for Him. Don't let doubt win. One of the biggest enemies of miracles is doubt. Doubt whispers lies. Doubt says, "This will never change." Doubt says, "You've waited too long." Doubt says, maybe this promise was not for you. But faith speaks louder than word. Faith says, God is still able. Faith says, my story is not finished. Faith says, the impossible is possible with God. Hold on. If you are going through a difficult season right now, do not give up. Do not stop believing. Do not let fear steal your hope. Because sometimes the greatest miracles are closest when faith feels hardest. Sometimes the breakthrough is near right when people are about to quit. And sometimes the impossible is only one moment away from becoming reality. Today, I want to encourage you. Believe God for the impossible. Believe that healing is possible. Believe that restoration is possible. Believe that new opportunities are possible. Believe that the story is not over. Because with God, impossible is not the end of the story. It's often the beginning of a miracle. If you believe God can do the impossible in your life, type I believe in the comments. And remember this, what looks impossible today may become tomorrow's testimony. Trust God, believe, and keep your faith strong because with God, nothing is impossible.